Well, I'm delighted to be joined now by Tyrone and Edendork St. Malachy's goalkeeper Niall Morgan for the launch of AIB's new series, The Drive, which explores the adversity faced by inter-county players in the modern game and what drives them to pull on the jersey year after year. Hosted by Ardal O'Hanlon, The Drive features the stories of 4 inter-county players and their journeys on and off the pitch, celebrating the incredible perseverance showed by players across the country who, despite logic, can't quit no matter how tough it gets, because tough can't quit. You can view the teaser for the series on AIBGAA's social channels now. Niall, how are you?
I'm good. How's things?
Can't complain. I suppose when you started with Tyrone, you assumed that you'd win All Irelands. Maybe then a couple of years later, you might have started doubting it. And then last year, you did win one. That's quite a journey, isn't it?
Yeah, in 2013, my first year, I suppose, we had a decent league campaign. We got to the final, beat by Dublin by a point, and then I got injured after the first round of the championship, after making an idiot of myself in Ballybuffet, and we went on to the semi-final, and I suppose you just thought after that, this is the norm. We get the semi-finals minimum every year. The next year we got put out in the second round of the qualifier by Armagh, and then 2015 we were back in a semi-final again, which then quarter-final, semi-final, final. You were just sort of thinking that it's only a sort of a matter of time before we win All Ireland, but then you sort of got up on 8 years, still no win, 9 years, still no win, and you sort of start thinking, wow, is this going to be one of them things where you retire and think, oh, look how close I got to winning. So whenever we did eventually get over the line last year, it was just absolutely unbelievable, the feeling of it, and it really was a dream come true. But then obviously this year it was the opposite feeling, you know.
This year didn't end the way you wanted it to, but is it a different feeling going out of the championship this year, having won an All Ireland, compared to going out any other year?
It's probably more disappointing this year than any other year, for the simple reason that we didn't get as far as what we would have liked to. Yes, it was always going to be a massive task to retain the All Ireland, probably an even bigger respect now for Dublin and what they've done over the last 6 years previous, but to go out on a whimper, really, it was extremely disappointing.
Have you made sense of it all in your head yet?
No, I don't think there's any one thing there where you could point to and say, oh, that's where we went wrong this year. I think it was a multitude of things, and we never really got up to the levels of fitness that we were at last year. I think we used the lockdown really well in terms of like the amount of work that we all put in individually before we even got back collectively as a team. And I think everybody knew that the person beside them had put in the work. Whereas I think because our club season went on to the middle of December, and then we sort of were on a holiday, that we never really got that bank of work done, and then we never caught up with the other teams, and that there's just rolled on like that there throughout the year.
I won't say do you accept it, because it sounds like there's a number of reasons why it just didn't quite happen for you this year, but is it important now to just go back to your clubs, get away from the county scene for a while, and then come back afresh next year, and you can nearly put this year behind, and because you've had the high of a recent All Ireland, you can nearly write off this year as a bit of an aberration? Now, maybe it'll be easier to say that this time next year if you have a good year, if that makes sense, but is that the way you have to look at it? Is that the way you have to do it?
Yeah, well, I suppose there's a massive silver lining that it's happened at the start of June, and now you're into your club season. And we're going to get a number of club games now in the summer months, which we haven't had in a long time. And come the end of that, you're going to have a good bit of time off to recharge the batteries and, I suppose, redevelop that hunger of where we were at last year. And if we can do that, then, you know, we can get back in the saddle and try to right the wrongs of this year. And as you say, write it off. And you know, there's no point in sulking over it or thinking that we're a bad team. You don't become a bad team in one season. It's just we just never got going, and that's the reality of it. And we have a lot of questions to answer personally and collectively as a team unit.
For yourself, what kept you going through some of the tougher times? Because I'm sure it's something that you get into in this series, the drive with Ardlo Hanlon as host. What kept you going through the darker days, and maybe the day you mentioned yourself there in Ballybuffet? I think you're being hard on yourself that day. I know you missed a few frees and all, whatever, but you know, it happens. What kept you going?
I think it was the cupping of the years that day in Ballybuffet. That was the the worst part of it.
Worst things have happened on Ulster Championship Day, and you know
yeah,
that.
Yeah, well, I suppose it did stay on the pitch, which was probably a bonus. But I suppose, like, it was always my dream whenever I was younger to play for Tyrone. I was only 4 years of age whenever Tyrone got the All Ireland final in '95, so I can't really remember. But like, I can remember distinctly having the jersey, the WJ Dolan jersey with number 14 on the back of it, and pretending you're a Peter Canavan out in the backyard, and you know, going to youth training with Dad from such a young age, and you know, you really felt the sense of belonging at all times within the GA. And I sort of moved towards soccer in my late teens and was going to try go down that route. I would never have made it across the water, but I could have forged a decent Irish League career, and probably still could. But my wife is GA mad, and I suppose between her and my family, like my family in my home house, that they were all GA mad, and I knew there would be nothing that made them prouder than me wearing the Tyrone jersey on big occasions. And the wider community and parish just mean a lot to me. I just wanted to, I suppose, do it for everybody else. And I've often said that whenever the time does come to retire, it'll not be until somebody comes and takes the jersey off me, because I want to leave the jersey in a better place. And until somebody is fit to take the jersey off me, I'll still have work to do.
You've played in those big games that you craved as a child for Tyrone, and you'll play in more to come, hopefully, in the next couple of years. What about watching Gaelic football? Are you a good watcher, and will you be able to watch this weekend's games?
I'm a real bad watcher of my club because I want to be involved at all times. So, like, we're probably lucky in Tyrone, we only ever miss 5 league games at the most. Last year we missed 9 because of just the shortened year and things. But I have to admit, I'm not the biggest follower of things, and it's probably just because I want to be playing at all times. Even like, I'm golf mad, but like, I find it really hard to watch golf. Like, I just want to be active. I want to be outside. I want to be doing things. And will I sit down and watch the games this weekend? I'll try, but you know, I'll be just easily distracted. And if somebody asks me to go and do something outside, I'll have no issue with getting up and leaving them. I wouldn't be glued to the screen.
How tough is it, speaking of being distracted, how tough is it for the goalkeepers in these games? Because as a footballing public, we now talk pretty much exclusively about kickouts, and it's the real lazy person's punditry kind of it's a real lazy person's approach to punditry that we concentrate just on kickouts, because we think that's the key to everything. Is it that important? Is it the key to everything? Is it something that there is too much talk on, that talk about, that, you know, or how do you see it?
I think it completely depends on what the other team do. Like, I've had games where I've had 100% of kick out success, but the other team has dropped off and give me every kick out. And then I've had other games where I've had maybe 65%, but we've got more joy out of that 65 than the 100% we got on another day, if that makes sense. Like, I think you have to analyze what's actually coming off the kickouts, how it's affecting the other team. Is it forcing them to sit back? Are they sitting back because they're scared of what your kick out can do? I see it as the ultimate compliment whenever a team sits back off my kick out, because it shows a sense of fear that they have in what I can do off the tee. But at the same time, I love the challenge of a team that presses up and trying to, I suppose, decode what they've got in front of me. but there's so much more to goalkeeping now. Like kickouts is obviously massive, but high ball is huge. We've seen a number of examples, I suppose, this year already where goals have came off high balls in. We've seen, Ethan being really commanding in the air and showing his physical presence in around the square. We've seen some great shot stopping, and we've seen some, poor shot stopping or lack of shot stopping. So it's kind of hard to know what a sort of specialist goalkeeper is nowadays. But I think the way it's evolving and playing out the field and getting on the ball has become such a huge part that it's going to be interesting to see how goalkeepers do it in Croke Park because it's such a big pitch.
Do you like this evolution of goalkeeping?
Yeah, I've said it before, I don't think that I would still be playing if I had to be pinned to my goal line, because I don't think that would be me at my best. I think there's better out and out goalkeepers in Tyrone than me in terms of shot stopping. So if we were being pinned to our line, I don't think that I would be the best option. I think it would be holding me back and it'd be holding the team back. So getting the ball and be that extra player is definitely helping me. It's challenging me and pushing me on to bigger and better things. And obviously we can see how effective it has been for other teams as well.
Do you mind if I kind of take a quick skate through the games at the weekend with you? And normally when we're kind of doing an analysis piece of matches coming up, we ask people who watch these teams an awful lot. You're a bit different in the sense that you've played against them all, and there probably isn't a player involved at the weekend that you haven't come up against. There's probably not a team involved at the weekend that you haven't played against. Some of them have been this season, some of them have been in recent weeks. So Derry and Clare, what are you expecting out of that game?
I think Clare's possibly the only team out of the 8 that I've never come up against. But I hope it doesn't sound disrespectful to them, but I would expect the Derry win, and I would love to see Derry releasing themselves a wee bit more and cutting the shackles off. Obviously, they'll not want to show too much if they expect to get into a semi-final. They'll want to hold something back. But I'd just love to see them in Croke Park opening out a wee bit more. Obviously being defensive whenever they need to, but I'd love to see them opening up and really, trying to up their scoring and getting, the forwards that they have on the ball and allowing them to excel.
What are Derry doing differently, or what have Derry tweaked this season as compared to last season? Because they weren't very far away from beating Donegal last year, so they haven't had to make too big a leap to get to where they have this year.
No, I think the only sort of difference I would see in them is that they're more ruthless in taking their chances. Like last year against Donegal in the championship, if memory serves me correct, they had a couple of opportunities for goal and they didn't take them. There was maybe a ball fist across the square and palmed onto the crossbar. There was maybe an opportunity for goal early in the game, but they fisted over the bar. And this year they're really going for the juggler and they're taking their goal chances. And the way that they play, if they can get a goal, it's a huge score because it's not easy scoring against them. And with the legs that they've got, whenever they sit back in and they sap your energy, trying to play around them, it takes a long time to get 3 points against them. And if they overturn you, they're so fast on the counter attack. And they've got Shane McGuigan and Benny Hearn and Niall Loughlin inside there who are lethal in front of goal, and can really take their scores. So I think that's the ruthless streak that they have now is the biggest difference.
Now I'm going to contradict myself here because I said you've come up against all of these teams recently. You've come up against Cork relatively recently, but not in the last year or two. And there's been an awful lot of change in their team in that time, in their management and everything. They're playing Dublin. What do you see happening in that game?
Cork are a little bit of an enigma for me because, I look at them beating Kerry and Munster a couple of years ago, and everybody said it was like Kerry just underperformed. And I think Cork that night outdone them in terms of they waited and waited and waited, and they were patient, and they eventually took their chance. And I would love to see them being a wee bit more patient like that. I think a lot of the time they try to force the issue a wee bit too much. Maybe nearly the polar opposite of Derry, who are, and Dublin for that matter, are really patient and take their time and pick you off. think Cork always want to, do everything so fast that if they just were a wee bit more patient and waited for their chances, I think they could take them. I still expect Dublin, who seem absolutely rejuvenated since the league, probably with the reintroduction of Conor O'Callaghan and James McCarthy there. I still expect them to come out on top. Last year, obviously, they didn't have their best year and still were just beaten in an All-Ireland semi-final. So it shows the level they're at. They've now blooded a further 5 or 6 players, and they're definitely, still a force to be reckoned with.
What about Mayo and Kerry? That could be a very interesting game, couldn't it?
Massively interesting game. Mayo, it's going to happen at some stage, and we're all waiting for it. I think there's a serious mental block with them in terms of the curse. I think they say they don't believe in it, but it's a bit like ourselves. Like people say, we play better with our backs against the wall, and we're almost starting to prove them right. I think if Mayo really put their shoulder to the wheel, they could outwork Kerry, and get over the line. And contradicting myself, I think Kerry have the best 1-15 in Ireland, and have had the best 1-15 for the last number of years. And it's whether they're willing to go to the well for each other. That's the biggest question mark over them. Munster has probably done them no favours in the last couple of years because they haven't had to work overly hard. And I think if they really, grind it out, and again don't try to force issue, they're probably favourites for All Ireland for a good reason.
And finally, and I know it might pain you to say nice things about Armagh, but they've had a very good season, and now they're up against Connacht champions Galway. How do you see that one going, and what do you make of Ethan Rafferty? He's kind of ruined it for you, Niall. He's made this goalkeeping lark look a bit easy, hasn't he? He's
made it look too easy for my liking. Whenever I scored a couple of points from play at the start of a couple of seasons ago, it was a big thing. And now he turned around and kicked 2 in the one game against us, and done it sort of by a canter too. His kickouts have really come to the fore. He's looking a whole lot more comfortable under pressure than he did at the start. He was a wee bit shaky in the Ulster Championship against Donegal at times, but that's always going to happen in Ballybuffet, the way Donegal press. He was very comfortable against us. He was very comfortable against Donegal, I felt, in the qualifier. He was good under the high ball. His shot stopping is probably still the one area, but he hasn't done goals in a number of years, so that's going to probably take longer to come. But what he can do coming out the field with the ball, his confidence in taking men on, is probably, bringing it even further than where me and Rory would be at. We're comfortable in the ball, but he's able to take men on with ease, beat them, and get out the other side. He's got a good array of passing. And I think he feeds into the Armagh team really well, because, and now the painful part, they're really strong in the defence. They've got a great midfield, and they've got some really, really high profile, energetic and sublime forwards. And they know when to sit back and defend. They can run the ball. They know when to play a long direct ball in. Their goal at the start of the Donegal game, set it up. That's not the first time this year they've done it. The goal against Dublin in the league, the long ball in, and I really think the style of play that Armagh have, they've got a great chance at winning All Ireland, not just competing in it. In terms of Galway, winning Connacht this year could be exactly what they need to get them to go that little bit more. I think we're all, Shane Walsh is just an unbelievable talent. Frustrates me whenever I hear people saying about him being natural. I was with him in the international rules, and the amount of work that he puts in to his game is unbelievable, and you don't get as good as he is naturally. You have to work hard, and he does that. I'm looking forward to seeing the battle of who picks him up in a wide open Croke Park and how that gets on. I'm waiting for him to really explode into life at this stage of the championship. And Galway are an exciting proposition as well. And the winners of that game have an unbelievable chance at winning All Ireland. It's very close to call, a close one to call.
Is a forward like Damien Comer standing on top of a goalkeeper from a high dropping ball, is that the nightmare scenario for a keeper, or do you not mind that? Because sometimes when teams go long like that, it means they're kind of out of options.
No, I think it just depends on the quality of the ball is massive. Like, if it's sort of fed into that position where the forward's got a chance to attack you, it's a complete disaster. But if it's fed into an area where it's right on top of his head, it makes the goalkeeper's job easy. And then the fullback has a massive role to play. If he doesn't get close to his man and allow the keeper to jump, there's only going to be one winner. It's happened on a number of occasions this year where you see a keeper come for a ball and a fullback doesn't do his job, and that's just dream territory for a forward. And the finger always be pointed at the goalkeeper, but the fullback's job can't be understated in giving the goalkeeper enough protection to come and get that ball. So it's definitely not ideal standing there and the likes of Damien Comer come and run that, yeah, that's for sure. But you have to trust your fullback, and I think that's where me and Ronan have had a great partnership over a number of years now, in terms of I know when I'm coming and he knows when I'm coming, and he knows what to do as well. So it's massively down to communication.
Niall, you've been really generous with your time. I could talk to you about any number of subjects, including Dungannon Swiss and the Irish League, but we'll wrap it up there because you've been talking to us for a while now. Niall Morgan, Tyrone goalkeeper, thank you very much.
Thank you.